I, Tantus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time for Gathering the Roll, the only news program supported by the Empire. Exciting and fantastic news from the worlds of Magic the Gathering and role-playing games such as Dungeons & Dragons, Shadowrun, and Pathfinder. Let's dive into today's news with some Magic the Gathering news for this week. So Magic has released some information on Aether Revolt. They're showing off the pack designs of any kind of packs you could buy, promos that you're going to get for a lot of the major events they're going to have, and of course the two special Planeswalker decks. Mimicking what they did in Kaladesh, they're releasing two special Planeswalker decks that includes copies of two Planeswalkers different from the ones that are actually in the set. So these are alternate versions of Ajani Goldmane and Tezzeret that will not appear in the normal sets that you can only get in these Planeswalkers deck. Of course, they have also released the Johnny Goldmane, looking at the new version of him for the set, so now you can take a look at his actual version of the Planeswalker that you will find within the set. Let's move on. Let's talk about some Dungeons & Dragons news. Unearthed Arcana continues to give us more information. This week, we're looking at the fighter and their archetypes. 4 more fighter archetypes came out, and they're an exciting group of them. There's, of course, the Arcane Archer, mimicking the old Prestige class from 3rd edition, Pathfinder, and the like, that you can be both a archer and use some magical abilities. Traditionally, it's more of an elf-based. They also have the Knight, mimicking a class from 3rd edition, where you have a mount and use very chivalrous abilities. Of course, they also have the Samurai, mimicking a class from Oriental Adventures back in 3rd edition, where you are a warrior with honor that uses a bunch of sword abilities. Very interesting take on that class there. And finally, of course, we have the Sharpshooter, a archer/crossbowman based sniper that you can also use as your fighter archetype. A very interesting take on that also. Let's move on and talk about Pathfinder news, because there's a whole bunch of releases in Pathfinder. First off, we have Pathfinder Player's Companions, Path of the Righteous. Now, this one gives a lot of information about being a religious character in and amongst the Pathfinder world, where you can expand upon some of the rules of those various religions. It includes 14 new prestige classes that you can take, and a number of options that you can take to affect both your character, both religious manners, including affecting their prestige class. So it's a lot of various options that'll help out your very religious characters, your things like clerics and such, and giving a lot of class options. Moving on, they also released the Pathfinder campaign setting, the First World, Realm of the Fae. Now, this one's all about the legendary Realm of the Fae, the First World, going and exploring it, checking out the interesting creatures and places that you can find there. It includes a whole host of information about the First World, and includes a bunch of new spells, magic items, and a couple of monsters that you will be able to use that are reflecting upon the First World. A very exciting thing. We also have some more Pathfinder Society scenarios that have come out this week. 2 actual ones that are beginning a series of scenarios that will be coming out over the course of this month and next, so I'll be talking about those too. The first up is the first part of the Tyranny of Wind series, the Sandstorm Prophecy. This is taking your characters from 1 to 5th level, and it's taking place in Eastern Osiren, where you're dealing with some of the interesting areas about the desert and getting into a storyline related to traveling there in this desert land. Forged in Fire, the Cinderworn Pact, taking your characters from level 5 to level 9. It's all about your characters entering into a mission based in the Plane of Fire. So you'll be traveling to some cities in the Plains of Fire and dealing with some things there. Another interesting scenario for you to check out. Moving on to some Shadowrun news, there's another 2 releases this week, another mission and another Legends novel. As for the Shadowrun missions, it's the Shadowrun missions called Collective Action. That's all about a traditional sort of Shadowrunning story set in Chicago. Now, this is the kind of Chicago you'd think about, more mobs, rules, crime kind of centric kind of area, and it doesn't have to deal with bug spirits, so it's going to be an interesting take on Chicago and exploring that. As for the Shadowrun Legends novel, a novel called Run Hard, Die Fast has come out. This one's all about a runner who is one of the better runners in the world, but he's got a conscience. So this old friend of his gets in trouble, and it's up to him to go on effectively a suicide mission in order to rescue her, grabbing a bunch of people. So it sounds like an exciting novel to check out. Moving on, there's some Earth Dawn news. They've released some information on their new site all about high circle archers that you can look into. So if you're playing a game where your archer gets up to very high circles, 9th to 15th. You can look at what kind of abilities you would get for getting that high circle. So you can check that out. They also do have another area that talks with some commentary and some rules clarifications. I will link both of them in the description below if you want to check them out if you're playing an Earth Dawn and have a very high circle archer. So that's it for the news for this week. Links to any of these stories will be in the description below. Remember to, of course, like, subscribe, and share the news. If you want to get in on the discussion for some of these news stories and more, you can always join us on Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Discussing Tabletop, where a group of us will get together, talk about some of these stories or more, answering any of your more discussion-related questions that you might have. Remember to check us out at www.twitch.tv/Tantus and Dracovin. Of course, that link will be in the description, and you can join us there this Saturday. As for any other questions, comments, anything you want to say about any of these stories that does not require a huge amount of discussion to answer, you can just leave them in the description below. We'll answer and talk about them to the best of our abilities. If you have any questions or anything you want us to discuss when it comes to discussing Tabletop, you can also leave them in the comments below. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.